our vote.
And just to bring people up to speed here, Molly Hannenberg, thanks very much. Just to get people up to speed who just joined us now, what has transpired over the past 30 minutes is this. The House vote came in, and you see there at the bottom of your screen, 226 nay, 207 yay. It was, by the way, 227 nay, 206 yay, so they picked up a vote somewhere along the line. The arm twisting goes on. This is not yet a done deal, though the gap appears to be wide. Since this vote came down, Shepard Smith just messaged me reminding me the Dow was actually down 700 points. That was the low. Oil, by the way, has slid $10 a barrel, so it's down on fears, of course, that inflation could push the dollar down. That's what's transpired. We kept Neil Cavuto around, and we have added Alexis Glick because we want the best minds in business to try and take us through this. And Alexis, your thoughts on what you think just happened?
Well, I mean, I think this is exactly what the administration did not want to see. In fact, at 3 p.m., I will be speaking with Treasury Secretary Paulson on the Fox Business Network. And, of course, the first question to him is going to be, what do you do now?
Right.
You know, it's very interesting. You heard a lot of Republicans over the past couple of days say that the Democrats had enough votes to get this done. Well, this tells you something completely to the contrary. And, you know, there were a lot of Republican congressmen who I talked to this morning who were pretty outraged about the fact that Congress was going to go in there today to vote on this, but Senate at the earliest. The Senate was going to meet on Wednesday, many people suggesting they were going to meet on Thursday, and that it gave senators an opportunity to hear from the American public over the next 2 to 3 days. And I think as that outrage was building throughout the morning, I think they kind of said, hey, wait a second, you know, why can't our voices be heard? If there's another 2 or 3 days, maybe we'll come back at this, take a stab at it again. But it does represent the deep divide in this country about whether or not this plan is the right plan for the markets and for you and me.
And, you know, and I remember standing here and watching some of the lower thirds on Fox Business Network the other day, and they were speaking to someone who was saying, you know, is Wall Street worth saving? You know, it's a rhetorical question, okay? But that is the question that's being hammered out here right now in many ways. I mean, is it, as we know it, these institutions and the way that they function, worth saving? Or is another model better? And one of the other things we kept hearing all day from Republicans primarily was, you know, why are we in such a rush? Why can't we work on a better plan? Why not take a couple more days and hammer out something that people are happier with, because people are clearly not happy with
Well,
this.
they feel by rushing the decline that you mentioned in oil prices, a lot of that has to do with the perception what's happening here is going to lead to a recession or worse in this country, so demand for oil goes down. But the good side is, you know, you have cheap gas. It's not always in lockstep and it's not always accurate, but it is a worry.
There are 3 things I would say in response to your question there, Martha. 3 things have happened in the past 10 days. You have had an orchestrated deal by the FDIC to bring Washington Mutual into receivership, an orchestrated deal with JP Morgan. You have had Citigroup. I know for a fact that the FDIC was negotiating until the late part of the morning, all night long, to get this Citigroup Wachovia deal done. The third thing is the market is reacting the way they feared. So between those 3 things, that has changed the attitude toward this. You continue to let banks be on the cusp of failure, and people will undoubtedly get more nervous. In my mind, Trace, the unsung hero today, at least as it was orchestrated for Wachovia and Washington Mutual, was the FDIC chairman, Sheila Bair, that she was able to make sure these 2 banks went into good hands.
This is, by the way, this is the alert on the bottom of the screen. The House is now, it just came across the wire, has now rejected this bill. We talked about the arm twisting. Now it's done. This is a done deal, and you can see as they rejected it, still no really change in the market there. Do you foresee some kind of a change now that it is a done deal?
Well, even with the stimulus we had last week, which is a separate package, rejected in the House, passed in the Senate, they could try to work out those differences, but that was, I think, political kabuki theater. This might be a different beast because no one wants to touch it, and I think, and I know you're going to talk to them, I think the fault lies with the administration and more to the point with the Treasury Secretary and regulators who failed to pitch it adequately. They never marketed it in terms of, they said, you got to do this, it's in our interest, but they never explained why the Main Street would benefit, and they sold it as a Wall Street thing and fear God if it didn't happen, but they never explained some of the big selling points that
the economy and of the capital markets, and frankly, a lot of agreement. And I think that this is a case of a failure of Speaker Pelosi to listen not only to her members, but certainly to our members and the common bonds that brought our members together on this very, very important issue facing the American people. This is not a partisan crisis. This is an economic crisis facing everyone in this country. And so
Have gotten there today. Had it not been for this partisan speech that the Speaker gave on the floor of the House. I mean, we've put everything we had into getting the votes to get there today. But the Speaker had to give a partisan voice that poisoned our conference, caused a number of members that we thought we could get to go south. At the end of the day, this is not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about our economy and what's best for the American people. And regardless of what happened today, we have no choice, in my view, but to work together to try to find a solution to make sure that we save our economy and we save our constituents. Roy Blair.
Well, thank you, John. We did think we had a dozen more votes going to the floor than we had. No more than that, but we thought we had a dozen more. I think, unfortunately, too many of our members were already on the floor when they heard that late speech by the Speaker. During this whole process, the tone in the room was so much better than the tone outside the room. We worked together well to try to come up with a compromise that could pass today, that the President could sign, that would do what needs to be done in the economy. But every time you turn on television or read an article about the press reports of what the other side was saying, it was all about how Republicans either were unpatriotic or were there too late or whatever. But we're going to reach back out to them. We're certainly going to reach back out to our members. We're going to try to do our best to find a solution here that works for the American people. No matter how many times I said, or Mr. Boehner said, or Mr. Hoyer said, or Mr. Frank said, we've got to put partisanship aside. There was way too much of that still going on, and a clock that nobody could control. You know, clearly needing to respect the holidays of this week, the Jewish holidays of this week, meant that we had to rush things in a way that made that job very hard, and we made it harder today by so much partisan discussion in what should have been a bipartisan effort to solve this problem for the American people. But